Hello, and welcome to Body of Knowledge, where we believe that the body helps make knowledge. Today, I want to talk about something that I normally mask, which is what it is like to live in a body that is hypersensitive to stress. And I already filmed this once, and I felt too unmasked. And maybe once I explain, that'll make sense why that was just too much to post. So I'm trying again with my emotional support Mexican Coca-Cola. I've been not drinking it because, Coca-Cola soda, but I'm gonna treat myself. I do that because it reminds me of my little inner girl. I probably for like a full year annoyingly did that like every time I took a drink. And it's just so cute and adorable. So I do it. It's like my cheer star. Pour a little out. Okay. So this is like a different level of we feel to the level of our bodies, which again is not a challenge, it's an invitation for more integration. And this isn't something that I normally talk about. And so it's like a little bit hard to talk about it. Which is just how sometimes my body just thinks that I'm in danger. And my hypervigilance gets like hyper vigilant, and that's kind of where I am. I think talking it through in the first video that I'm not going to post helped a little bit. I'm going to pause to clear my throat. So, yeah, right now, I'm just trying to create a safe and calm environment, and recording this video serves two purposes. Number one, I am documenting something that's really important to the research process, my research process. A lot of the reason I think we don't do embodied research, or we don't turn to the body as a source of knowledge, is because we're overriding it. And we override it for good reason oftentimes. Like, I was crying in the last video, and it didn't feel safe to be presenting myself in an academic sense while also crying. I cried last week in my directed seminar class when sharing my presentation, and I got the impression, were presuming that I was fragile when I was actually quite emotional, and I think there's a difference between fragility and emotionality, but we don't get into that because we override the body. So this is an important part. Like, okay, in the research proposal, there's a section for risks, and basically the idea is if you have no risks, then you haven't thought your research project through, because there's always going to be risk. And this is kind of what the risk is of doing embodied research, is that my body has a voice. It's a non-rational voice. It's a voice that I cannot dictate or control with my mind. Ooh, understanding more of that Spinoza axiom, like my body's gonna feel what it wants to feel. So there's that part, that it's part of my research process to document that this is going on. And then the second reason is that my body is hypervigilant because I have a history of being in unsafe situations. And so my body is like trying to do me a favor here, right? Like, let me keep an eye out for you. And oftentimes what we do in somatic work is notice and name how is this situation different than situations in the past? So like a different example that like was kind of hilarious, but also triggering. I was staying at a friend's house in Italy, and I think it's still in the process of being renovated, but it's livable. And the day that I got there, I like opened all the windows, and then I was like, I normally try to stay awake to prevent jet lag, but I was like, oh, I just need to go to bed. And I like put on my nightgown, and I closed the doors of the bedroom, and I went to bed. And then I heard people in the house, and I opened the door, and there's a whole bunch of men there, and the architect had forgotten that I was coming, and he was there with the Geo Metro and the workers, and I don't know who else, and we looked at each other, and I didn't have my glasses on or contacts in, so I'm like trying to squint, like, who is here? They like booked it out of there, and that triggered some old memories that were not safe or funny. And so what I did in therapy was like naming, how is this different, and like trying to be as specific as possible. So this is me also doing a practice of how not to mitigate risk, but how to work with it if and probably when it emerges. So I'm just so stressed out, and it's nothing big, and arguably it's a lot of very good things and a lot of unknowns, which means a lot of uncertainty, which means a lot of fear, a lot of little fears adding up to a big fear that has just completely overwhelmed my system. Like shaking, crying, fatigue, stress exponential, and taking this as my baseline right now. Maybe I should stop saying failure because it has so many negative connotations, but also it's so provocative that there's something about it that I like it causes me to listen when I use the word failure. So I think maybe I'll continue using it. And just, okay, so what happened was just like silly little things, but many of them. I started a new job this month. So it's like new boundaries, new personalities, learning people, learning who they are, learning if they're safe, which is something like I feel like I'm always doing when I meet new people, whether it's work or not, trying to assess, probably a little bit of fawning in case they're not safe, or to make them more safe. And like so many people that I'm coming into contact with, so so much happening there. Nothing bad has happened, but I feel like, and I was hired for this position because of my experience. I have a lot of, it's communications position, and I'm doing event promotion, organization promotion, fundraising, membership drives, etc. I have quite a lot of experience with that, and so it's kind of a newish position, and so I know what I'm doing, but I feel like every time that I say something authoritatively, is that how you say that? Authoritatively. Every time I say something with authority, I just have a bit of fear, residual fear from other things. And so it's like, that is going to be the case until I learn these people's personalities and how they respond. And so I'm like able to logically say, my speaking brain says to my body, like, it's okay. Yeah, like we can take it easy. And my body's just like, I don't believe you. And so it's like quite stressful. And working with that, with all of the practices that I've been talking about this whole time. Breath work, going to the gym, even going to the ceramic studio, having theory days versus poesis days, journaling, did I already say that? All of these things are what I need to do. But then my mind gets a little bit frustrated because I'm like, I'm doing all the things that I know I'm supposed to do. I am using my tools, and my body is still like, I am in danger. And that in itself is another level of stress that took like all the little stresses and then like, let's make it heavier. And I'm like, thanks. And then interestingly enough, it's like doing embodied research is also causing me stress for a similar reason. Like I feel like I am testing boundaries and pushing boundaries, and I'm afraid of getting in trouble. Like that's my little girl who's afraid, and she's just like leading the show. She's like, 7 years old. I know that I'm gonna get in trouble, so fear. And I'm like, it's okay. I understand the risks. I understand in this case, I did a paper and I threw out the rubric and I wrote the paper that I wanted to write. And I did that purposefully and intentionally. I wanted to push the boundary of what is acceptable. I kind of want to see, like, the little girl in me is like, if you don't follow the rules, you are going to get in super duper trouble. And I'm like, okay, that was the case, but now, like, what happens if I just do this assignment the way I want to do it instead of how I was told to do it? Like, what's the worst that can happen? I get the worst that could happen would be that I failed the paper, I guess, but I seriously doubt that would happen. So I purposefully took this assignment as a way to like step outside the box, step outside the institutional rubrics and do what I wanted to do. And it was experiential and experimental. It was my paper on Spinoza. And I was talking about joy, cheerfulness, joking, laughter, and the paper that I wrote, the paper I was reading, for my paper, I was supposed to summarize it, and it was so boring. I was like, we're talking about joy, and I need a nap. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this differently. I'm gonna bring laughter into this paper, and I wrote like a hopefully funny introduction as if it was like the Twilight Zone, and I put in some of my phenomenological experiences. Like, I think it was the last video I talked about how crawling on the floor opened up one of Spinoza's axioms for me. So I like recreated the moment and like took a photo and I put it in the middle of the paper with the caption like, the author crawling across the floor impressively. And it's all making me laugh. I think it's funny. So I'm like all of these like little things that amuse me greatly. Now I've turned it in for peer review and I'm like, somebody's gonna read this now. And I'm like, how is it going to be received by my peers? How is it going to be received by my professor? So there's like anxiety there too, which isn't necessarily bad, but then coupled with all of that other anxiety I was bringing in. And then Monday I was finishing the paper, but also Monday I had a packed schedule and nothing was flexible. And Monday is when just the biggest wave of anxiety hit me to the point like my body was shaking and I was really struggling to get through all of these things, but I managed because I've grown very good at masking. And then I did just say at the end of the day I was teaching a pottery class And I just said to them, I was like, guys, I'm having a day. I'm here and I'm present, but my body is feeling very anxious right now. So if you could please give me a little grace, that would be appreciated. And everyone, that's like a huge step for me. I'm trying to learn to name in advance rather than post or never, like what I'm feeling, so that people like don't take it personally. But it's so hard to do because it feels shameful for reasons, probably capitalist reasons. So I did that, but still my body was so stressed. And then yesterday, yesterday I couldn't really do much. Even the typical things that I would do, like listening to audiobooks at the gym, that was like, no, thank you, my body said. And even at the gym, like I should have. Retrospect. I basically lifted the same weight that I did before, and it was so hard. Today, I'm looking at yesterday of like, that was your body saying something to you. And then today, I just wanted to cry all morning. And I did cry a little bit. And so trying to state this, because this is one of the risks of doing embodied research, along with, some like personal things, because my background kind of intensifies things for me in a way. And this is something that I've been thinking about, that I really dislike it, because when I've heard people say it similarly in the past, it's been with like the intention to shame, which is like feeling some gratitude for the last year, feeling some like actual gratitude. I think I mentioned before, like, I'm not grateful. I'm accepting, but I'm not grateful. But finding gratitude, because it is these extremes. It's like when things are too closely similar, it's hard to analyze and understand them. But when there are the extremes, that's when what's going on becomes more apparent. So that's one reason. And then another reason is that the basically fall 2024 and spring 2025, I kind of had abandoned my embodied research process because I was trying to get these 2 master's degrees done, which made me feel like a little hypocritical, right? Because I'm like, I'm studying embodiment and I'm pushed myself to the point of no return, except I have returned. So that breaking point, though, forced me to find embodied research. Like, the choices are give up, drop out, or find a way to do this that includes your body. And so grateful for that. And then also grateful just because it's just healing work, and hopefully it expands beyond me. Like, that's the reason that I'm researching this, is so that I can put this research out into the world. Yeah, I've kind of lost track of where I'm going. I am feeling pretty stressed, as I mentioned. Okay. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say. Oh, I did. Luckily, there's all like silver linings to all of this. This is exciting. I've been talking about questions for so long. Research questions are the bane of my existence. They're so annoying. I always feel like I am forcing something into being that doesn't exist, and it's so frustrating. But this process of me trying to find embodied research methods has actually helped me find potentially a gap. And I've talked to 2 professors in the last couple of days about this, and they were both like, yeah, this is a point of exploration. Like, this is definitely a gap, which is, the question is something along the lines of what research methods allow for the most embodied research, And I'm not using most as this like subjective, more or less embodied in any particular moment, but rather the research process has so many steps. There's ideating, there's reading, analyzing, lit reviews, comps. Well, I guess not every, the PhD research process has comps, field research, writing things up, you know, endless steps really. And I have found a couple of methods that will embody one aspect of the process, but it's within this much larger disembodied framework. And I really want to have beginning to end embodied. And so for the moment, like that goes back to my idea of researching research. That seems to be where I'm gonna land for now. And so far I've found a couple of methods that I want to do a deeper dive on. The first is practice this method, which comes from the arts. That one is less suited to anthropological work, but I want to do a deep dive to see what it entails and how it might be adapted. And then the other is apprenticeship ethnography, which is so interesting. And it's more than going to a community and interviewing them and getting to know them and their customs and their beliefs and all the things that happen in anthropological fieldwork. Instead, the person who coined this term, Paul Stoller, he apprenticed to a shaman, became initiated as a shaman, and is saying like the level of understanding changed when he apprenticed and became a shaman versus viewing from the outside, or even like participant observation and like participating in some ceremonies would be an example of that. He is taking this to the next level. Now the reason that would definitely fit anthropology, but it would require that I find one like lineage, one teacher, one thing to devote myself to, and I don't have that thing. I don't know what it would be. I don't know what I would want it to be. And this is actually something that I was sensing way back in September or October. And I took that video down because I felt too exposed, but I was talking about like wanting a field that would feel like a life's purpose. Something like I know of someone who became a doula and researched doulas, especially in oppressed communities. And that would be an example of an apprenticeship ethnography. So I don't know what direction I want to go in, but I do know that I have found my gap, and I'm doing this pre-research. Well, it's not pre-research, it is research. Doing this research to dig in to know, is this actually a gap, or is it just hidden, or is it something that I don't know? So that's the next step. And so it feels good to have more of a compass now. So that's my update right now. Just dealing with being a human. I feel so human-y. I don't know how to end this video. Oh, I know. Here we go. Until next